We need to talk about the North American National Championship. There are some things that you need to know that will update your Yu-Gi-Oh deck or could change your entire perception on the entire game. It's incredibly important, but don't worry, I got all the information. Let's go ahead and jump on in. What's going on with y'all, big dog? And it is an amazing day for Yu-Gi-Oh! I hope that your day phenomenal. But if it isn't, don't let what happened at the beginning of your day ruin the rest of your day. As per usual, we have Update Monday, a particular time where I talk about something that not only betters you as a Yu-Gi-Oh player, I'm talking about something to better you as a person. Now, since there's so much to talk about Nationals, I just have something really important. The biggest thing that I learned over the course of this weekend, because I did attend Nationals, is that during your darkest times, you are tested. There are going to be situations where you will go through a ton. Almost feels like it's life-altering. Currently, I'm going through that particular thing, and I don't want to talk about it right now. I will tell you in a second. I think these are the times and opportunities where you become a battle-tested person, and you look in the bright side of the situations, and you look to not only make yourself a stronger person, but always look for the fix. I'm currently doing that. It's a reason why I tell you guys, don't let what happened at the beginning of your day ruin the rest of the day, because some up shit can happen in your beginning of your day. But always sit down, recalibrate, and try to look for the rest of your day. Speaking of perseverance, the Yu-Gi-Oh! North American Nationals had 2,600 players, and I ain't gonna lie, there were so many awesome people there. This is the most competitive event that will happen on North American grounds until the World Championship. Like I said before, there were some really important things that we need to talk about at this event that will shape how you dictate the rest of this format. As you already know, we are not getting a ban list to at least late August, which means we have at least a month of dealing with this. So one thing I want to talk to you guys about is that out of the 2,600 players at the event, 25% was Fiendsmith Snake Eyes and 15% was Fiendsmith Yugioh. This should really dispel the whole notion that Yu-Gi-Oh players can't afford Yu-Gi-Oh cards, because if you already know, the Fiendsmith engine was about $500 and it came out the day before Nationals. And with this type of data, it pretty much proves that over 1,000 duelists were able to get a hold of some of the most expensive cards in the game, not to mention some other tech cards that may have ran them a little bit more out of Infinite Forbidden. I think that this may set a precedent for Yu-Gi-Oh events. We've already had a particular situation where a Yu-Gi-Oh set was released the day of the event before, Magnificent Mavens in the tier limit format, and Konami may look to do this again, as you can already assume since 1,000 people had a full Fiendsmith engine that maybe Konami will release more sets on the same weekend that they have a major event. This would be beneficial for vendors and OTS stores and everything alike, but probably would be a huge blow to budget players unless they fix a way where everyone can get access of at least a lower end card. 2,600 who would all fell to my super heavy sword soul. Bro, the cope is real, chat. And if you guys weren't at the national experience, there was somebody that actually made a post that was really funny. The event ran smoothly. The non-head judges were hired from Temu. The survey was made to make you feel like they care, which they don't. Y'all pulled up to bars hoping to pull women on your team with jerseys. The Q&A lady hated her job, and there was more glazing done at the venue than the Krispy Kreme factory. I'm sick. All of those were fairly accurate. But I think that it's best to talk about some popular cards that were being used throughout the event to either help your game or let you know what you should be prepared for. I think one of the biggest things that happened from Infinite Forbidden didn't really show up until the very end of the event. Molcharmy Pirellia was a card that players didn't think was really good, myself included. And I still to this day don't think that Molcharmy is an incredible Yu-Gi-Oh card. But at the end of the day, it's still a maxi-like Yu-Gi-Oh card. And today's Yu-Gi-Oh hand traps are about lowering the opponent's ceiling or seeing more cards that you can use to be able to counter your opponent. Molcharmy does that, but another card that actually works in conjunction with Molcharmy is Fantastical Dragon Phantasm. I think that these cards being used in combination with one another is insane. Fantastical Dragon Phantasme can be incredible at allowing you to reset your hand, as well as preventing the ceiling of your opponent's combo. I think Droll and Logbird was another card that a lot of players played, but it wasn't a card to end your opponent's turn like how Yugioh is used before. Drilling Lockbird in combination with another card could potentially allow you to be able to see some really good returns, and using it on Molcharmy Pirelli felt like using it on Maxi. So there's that. That Necro Princess card Trish used looked dope. Now, Necro Princess is a new TCG exclusive that was pretty much used in every single Snake Eyes build. I even have a combo displaying how hand traps don't necessarily stop you, even if your opponent hits the most critical points that were used in the last format. So go ahead and check that one out. Forbidden Droplet was a crazy good card, and players were using it to be able to break your board. If you combine it with cards like Molcharmy Pirelli, you're going to have enough cards to be able to send to the graveyard. So I think that that was really well. And then what I think is kind of an indication to what we're having in this format is that mainboarding the Bystials were huge pluses. Not only did it gatekeep decks like Despia and Voiceless Voice, it was also really important to be able to stop the Fiendsmith engine, but also when you main deck Bystial monsters, it probably says that there's a huge problem in the format. The Angel Statue card is used well. Oh yeah, the card I told you to buy before it skyrockets in price. Not only were players playing Angel Statue, they were also playing Silhouette Rapid, as being able to use any two monsters to get a potential destruction and a negation was really, really good. I think despite it being a tier 0 format, there were still players to use older strategies and even cards from Infinite Forbidden that were really exciting. Unfortunately, I don't think that those particular strategies will stick, but it was really fun to know that there is a subversion of Yu-Gi-Oh that can be incredibly successful. Again, if we all get together and just have fun with our friends, Yu-Gi-Oh could be phenomenal. At competitive events, it's like ultra competitive right now. Tier 0 format, but random decks with amazing pilots can compete. Ancient Gear showed that. Let's actually look at the Ancient Gear deck list too. I think that it was pretty cool. Shout out to Corbin. He got day 2 with Ancient Gears. Holy crap, chat. It's literally just ancient. It's literally Earth Machine. As you can see, there's cards like Forbidden Droplet in this particular deck list. There's also Skill Drain, Power Filter for Yubel. That's a pretty crazy card. And while this deck did not top, it actually goes to show that some of even the older strategies from Legacy of Destruction that got support can be really fun and sometimes incredibly competitive if you stick to your guns. Here we go, Cali, with the Earth Machine Copium. Bro, it's not Copium at this time. I think that this deck is actually really cool, guys. It's literally an Earth Machine type deck. Holy crap. I mean, obviously it stays true to the Ancient Gear roots and it plays 0 hand traps. I think that that's a pretty good route. It plays DD Crow instead of the Bystial cards, which is really good because you need to be able to stop the Fiendsmith engine sometimes, and sometimes you don't want other monsters on your field, like this deck revolves around Earth Machine, so it can work. Now, if you guys want to start looking in the top cut, Yu-Gi-Oh does get a little stale. We are in a tier 0 format where Snake Eyes got even stronger, but I think that other strategies are starting to creep up in terms of power. They're starting to become a little bit more of a big 3, even though the strongest deck in the game is still overwhelming right now. But on to the top 64, I think it'll show you guys a bigger picture of what went down. There was 30 Snake Eyes, 9 Yubel, 13 Tempai Dragon, 3 Runick, 1 Despia, 2 Ritual Beast, 1 Labrynth, 2 Gimmick Puppet, 1 Memento, 1 Tear Limits, and 1 Vanquish Soul, which I ain't gonna lie, that was kind of crazy. The Vanquish Soul threw me completely off. On the bad side, 40 out of the 60 decks use the Fiendsmith engine, which I think is completely insane. On the good side, we do have some decks that seem really cool that can compete. And as of the time of making this video, I don't necessarily have the list that I want to show you guys, or some of the lists that I want to show you guys, but we do have some really fun looking deck lists. If you guys could help out a little bit, go ahead and put some lists down below that you think were really cool, and I'll be sure to add them to the pinned comment. It was Vanquish Soul Snake Eye, so it was just Snake Eyes. You can splash Snake Eyes in almost anything and it'll probably do well. This time around, I actually want to show you Kyler Price's Gimmick Puppet FTK. This is a deck that got support inside of the new deck or the new set Infinite Forbidden. And holy God, Kyler, you're going crazy. So basically the purpose of this deck is to be able to FTK your opponent. Who would have guessed? The Horrors cards used to be able to make players make monsters that would prevent you from being hand trapped. Cards like Galaxy Eyes, Photon Lord were typically used. The cool thing about this deck is that if it does get into its field spell, you're cooked, my brother in Christ. There's almost nothing you can do to stop this deck from winning. And what's coolly enough, we talked about Raigeki being a really good staple coming into the game. I talked about it on my staples tier list, so go ahead and check it out if you guys want more information about what are the best staples. There was also another amazingly cool deck that did get the top cut. Unfortunately, it did use Fiendsmith, but on the bright side, it shows you that if Snake Eyes get hit, there can still be some creativity with this Fiendsmith engine. Johnathan Williams' Fiendsmith Memento deck shows that if the Snake Eyes cards do get hit to oblivion, then you're not completely just stuck with useless Fiendsmith cards. The whole point of this deck is to be able to send as many Memento monsters from your deck to the graveyard, and with the new Fusion monster and Tekula Creation King, as well as the Fiendsmith engine, you can actually insulate your combos by summoning Apollouso or a DDD Wave King Caesar before you pop off, getting into your combined creation and your trap card for a decent amount of negates. I'm pretty excited about this Yu-Gi-Oh deck because in a tier 0 format, if it can do completely well, that means if we do get these Snake Eyes cards hit, it will do incredibly well as well. For top 32, it doesn't necessarily get better. Snake Eyes still holds half of the cuts. Yubel with 4, Tempai Dragon is 7, Runick Stun gets 2, a Despia, a Ritual Beast, and a Labrynth. Decks like Gimmick Puppets, Tier Elements, Memento, and Vanquish Soul were completely knocked out of contention, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but goes to show how much power that the Tier 0 deck has over some of the other strategies, regardless on how competent of a Yu-Gi-Oh player you are. But it doesn't mean that innovation can't be done, guys. Michael Tamez's Labrynth deck is sick. Chat, I don't know if you guys like math. I don't, but this is a simultaneous equation cannons build, which basically means that you use your extra deck to be able to get rid of all of your opponent's cards. All you have to do is match the cards with simultaneous equation cannon. And the best thing about it, it uses 3 of the mommy milkers, it uses 1 of the other mommy milkers, and 32 trap cards. Ew, Labrynth. Yo, you guys are going crazy. I'm not sure how I like this version of Labrynth, and it's mainly because this is a little bit more toxic with the skill drain, the goals in, the rivalry, and stuff like that. But I do like that Labrynth can still evolve and be played inside of this format to be able to stop your opponent. I think that this version of the deck is only existed because of the type of format that we're in. And if we get to a more diverse format, Labrynth can't pinpoint a particular strategy to be able to take down. Top 16 is where it gets even more gritty, guys, with 8 Snake Eyes Fiendsmith, 3 Yubel, 3 Tenpai Dragon, 1 Runick, and 1 Despia. Essentially, Fiendsmith has had over 50% of representation in the entire top cut, meaning that it seems like for competitive Yu-Gi-Oh, you absolutely need those cards to be able to compete. I want to take a look at 3 different deck lists with you guys. The first one is Murat Urinjay's 50 card branded list. I love that there's Book of Eclipse, Dark Ruler No More, and Forbidden Droplet, some really powerful staple cards that we talked about. Triple Tactics Thrust, as well as the Bestial Monsters Evenly Matched, Seer Mode, and Drolan Lockbird. This was a really solid Yu-Gi-Oh deck. Overall, Branded has pretty much figured out what it needs to be able to succeed, and getting a top 16 placement is pretty good, especially if you know what you're doing. Matt Bauer's Runick Stun deck shows you guys you can still play Stun. I don't even really know what to say about this deck, guys. It's exactly what you want to see. Stun is really good in situations where you know that there's only one deck of the format you have to beat, so you build the deck to beat that particular strategy. And I have to say that can be incredibly effective inside of a tier 0 Yu-Gi-Oh format, but not really effective when it comes to winning the event, mainly because we can skip all the way to top 8, and top 8 is 5 Snake Eyes, 2 Yubel, and 1 Tempai Dragon. If you ask me, I think those are the strongest decks in Yu-Gi-Oh, hands down. Snake Eyes being the clear number 1, Yubel being the clear number 2, Tempai Dragon being the budget deck that players can play, but I ain't gonna cap, all 3 of these decks are pretty toxic. Right now, Yu-Gi-Oh feels like even if you do play the correct counter cards to stop the best decks in the format, you still will lose, especially if they win the dice roll, and even more especially if they know what they're doing. The fact that you need Fiendsmith, the most expensive engine probably in a very long time, to be able to compete at the highest level is disheartening. But like we said before, there are other strategies if you take away Fiendsmith that you can dedicate yourself to do well. Just don't expect to win the event. I want to give a shout out to my man's Aditya. This man is crazy. We're a part of the same team, Inspire, and his particular version of Snake Eyes Fiendsmith is perfect. This may be what the format is revolved around. The only thing I wouldn't play is this trash Yu-Gi-Oh card. But this is one of those situations where you're damned if you go first, you're damned if you go second, because of generic cards like Molchuri Perelia and Fantastical Dragon Phantasme, allowing him to see the disruption cards that he needs, as well as the engine pieces, and recycle some of the bricks back into his deck. There's 3, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20 hand traps. 20 of them. And there's 3, 6, 9, 12, 15 one-card starters. Let that sink in, guys. With 20 hand traps in a 45-card deck, I think the odds of you being able to see 3 of those hand traps is incredibly high, especially when you put in draw cards that allow you to be able to see those cards on your opponent's turn. I think that this is the height of what we're seeing for competitive Yu-Gi-Oh right now, but I'm still holding hope that there will be a significant change that will fix this particular conundrum. Potentially the ban list, but even more potentially a master rule that changes everything. But let me know what you guys think about Nationals. What was your favorite part? My favorite part of the entire event is that me and TJ got to do Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Challenge on the duel floor using the giant cards. If you weren't there, then you missed out on probably the real feature match of the event. I would also like to give a shout out to my boy Ruben, shout out to my boy Aditya, shout out to my boys Owen, Johnny, Jordan, everybody in Team Inspire. You guys were amazing, and as a team, I think we're taking over, but that's for something else. If you want to see more amazing content, go ahead and check out these videos so I can catch you on the next one.